Leslie Freelo from the Wine Concierge and Vino 301. And I am going live. It is not Wednesday. Normally it is Wine Lovers Wednesday. And I have to apologize because we have not been doing, or I have not been doing Wine Lovers Wednesday for a while. And it's because we have been doing tastings on a regular basis on Wednesdays. So we haven't been able to broadcast live. So we're going to find a good day that we can be consistent at it, because I know it's kind of herky jerky where you're not, like, you don't know when we're going live. It's just like a magical event like today. So today we're going live, and our guests should be joining us soon. And it's all about bubbles. He has a sparkling wine club. So you know how we do a wine club. He just does sparklings. So I'm so excited to meet with him and talk to him, not just about his club. His name is Lieven. Not just about his club, but also about, it's the holidays. And so what type of bubbles should you be getting? A lot of people just, go in the wine store and they will gift bubbles, and they're just not sure. They just like, well, I don't want to spend a lot, or I want to spend maybe $150. And like, how do you know you're getting something of value? So when Lieven comes, he is going to be able to tell us all about it. And I see him now. He has just popped in. So I'm going to bring him in and add him to the stream. And I think it'll be an interesting conversation, because he's going to crack the code. I'm talking about Lieven. He's going to crack the code on what are quality bubbles. And him and I actually met over the summer. We were doing a wine concierge packing, and he was in the same location, and so we stumbled across each other. And even back then we were like, yes, we need to get together and talk about our different clubs or what have you, and have him on the live. So I'm so excited that you are here today.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yes. So I've told people a little bit about you, but if you could please introduce yourself, that would be excellent.
Sure. Hi, my name's Lieven. First name, last name can be a little bit difficult for people. Lieven, DeGeyndt. Once you understand Lieven, like you're leaving, where are you going? Leaving on a jet plane, leaving on a midnight train to Georgia, leaving conditioner. Different ways to think of Lieven. It tends to stick in your head after that.
Yes. Yes.
And then the last name is pronounced DeGeyndt. But it's a Belgian name. I was born in Belgium, so it's a Dutch Flemish name.
Well, welcome. Welcome to our live. And I love your title. You are the Chief Tasting Officer. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, yeah. Leslie, you know as well as I do, you could put any number of words after the word chief when you run your own little small business.
Exactly. And yes.
CEO should just be Chief Everything Officer.
Everything. Just chief everything. And those who are watching and following us now, if you have any questions, please post them, and we would love to hear from you. And I'm glad that you are following us this evening. So I had mentioned that we met while we were doing a mailing, and you were like, I have a wine club also, but it's all about champagnes, right?
Right.
Is that correct about the sparklers? It's
Sparkling
all
wine.
about champagnes. And the other day we ran into each other again, and I said, oh, I have this. I was really excited about one of the brands that we were carrying, and I was like, well, what do you think of it? And you were very forgiving in your statements, and you were like, well, it's nice. Trying not to hurt my feelings. Like, it's nice. But then you explain with your club, it really has to be exceptional because you're only choosing 3 and it's monthly. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's monthly. So it's got to be the best of the best. So tell everyone about your club and what you do and where you guys are located.
Yeah. So, yes, but I mean, we're located in Washington, D.C. I live in Washington, D.C. I've lived here for several decades now. So I'm very, very familiar with the Washington area. Um, there are a ton of wine clubs all over the world and all over the country. And they all have their different roles, their niches. They all serve an amazing purpose. Leslie's is a really, really nice one. And I've always had a passion for sparkling wine and champagne. And when I was looking to start with a new business, I used to be in the bar scene. I used to own a few bars in Washington, D.C. So the beverage world is not new to me. Dealing with alcohol and distributors and licenses and all of that is not new. So it was a little bit easier for me to get back into this, and already had a lot of contacts and things like that. So in the bar scene, in the club scene that I worked in before, I kind of developed an affinity for champagne and sparkling wine. So yeah, I wanted to take it to another level. And after looking around, realized that as many wine clubs as there are almost none. I mean, less than a handful in the entire country that exclusively focus on sparkling wine and champagne. A lot of clubs offer it, but it's not their focus. So it's a little bit different in what you're going to get, because my entire research and searching and curating and the whole process and everything is purely dedicated to that sparkling wine world. So it kind of opens up a lot to me in terms of having the opportunity to taste and try and search and find ones that are a little bit more difficult or would never really be found otherwise in this area.
It's got to be challenging. Do you ever do you just ever reach out to the producers directly to find those unique brands?
Not yet. I mean, I've visited quite a few producers, which is wonderful, and made a few connections and things like that. But they all already have distribution and things like that, and importers. So you can't really. It's hard to do anything separate, right? You have to work within the system that people already exist in. So I can see, though, easily as the club grows a little bit and the membership is a little larger, that I can go to producers and that do not have distribution in the area, and then being able to talk to them like, wow, I really like this. I'm going to need, X number of cases, and then be able to bring that in specifically.
So I was mentioning earlier that you're going to help us unlock the mystical how to select, and I think you did a post on this, selecting the right champagne, the right sparkling for gift giving, and just to have we have the holidays right around the corner. How do you select it, and what's your process that you recommend to people?
Yeah, that mean, try to narrow this into like a 1-2-minute thing, right? This could go, we could talk for hours on this subject just alone. So yeah, I did a post recently, which was really generic. It was just, I'm constantly tasting different sparkling wines and things like that. And it just happened to have been a busy week where literally I had a tasting every single day. Last week ended up being Monday through Saturday, 6 days in a row with tastings. So it ended up being dozens of sparkling wine just in 1 week that I tasted. So, I mean, over the past year, it's easily somewhere, I've lost count. It's between 300 and 400 different ones that I've tasted. So yeah, so there's a very specific style that I look for my personal taste in terms of what I would include in the club. It's sparkling wine and champagne is really tricky for people to buy on their own. Not for 2 reasons, really. One, they may not have a lot of familiarity with it, which makes sense, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's that the reason for that is the reason number 2 is it's just not widely available. And typically you'll go to any store and they'll have this long shelving and shelves and shelves of wine, and then it's like sparkling wine, right? It's just the percentage of availability in any store is so much smaller. that it's just hard to know anything about it. It's hard to know how much of it there really is out there, which is quite a bit. So unless you have help, real help, from a really knowledgeable store owner or buyer or someone who can really point you in the right direction, it can be tricky. But there's a lot of really good sparkling wine out there. And in the holidays, you know, people kind of get in that celebratory mood.
Yeah.
You know, my whole thing kind of is to not need a celebratory mood. You should just drink it, and not need a reason. I mean, you open a bottle of wine without a reason. You should be able to open a bottle of sparkling wine without a reason, just because you feel like having it, and that's enough reason on its own. But for the holidays, it's, I mean, Leslie, you know this very well, right? Sparkling wine pairs so well with so many different
It
foods.
does amazingly. Yes.
If you're stuck like, well, we're serving this and this and this, we have all these dishes, and you know, this red wine's not really going to go that great across the board, and this white is a little limiting, right? One or two sparkling wines, especially if you have like a Blanc de Blanc and then like a Blanc de Noir or a Rosé or something like that, those two alone cover just such a broad range of food. It just makes it so easy to drink and not have to think, right? If you're someone who's really trying to be particular and match and pair and struggling because you have different people, different tastes, and all these different foods, then sparkling wine is the way to go.
I always refer to it as the little black dress of the wine world.
That's
You
a great
just
way to say it.
you can just do so much with it. And I love the fact that you suggest that don't wait for a special occasion. Like it's meant to be enjoyed. And I think, and let me know what you think about this, but I think sometimes people put it in this special category because they're looking at certain price points that prohibits them from just, you know, having watching TV and having it and some popcorn. What are your thoughts on why people just put it in that, oh, we're just going to have it for a birthday or New Year's Eve or anniversary?
Off the top of my head, I'd say, I guess, three kind of things pop to mind why it's the case. One, the price points are higher. That's a given, but that doesn't mean it has to be a $50, $60 bottle. There are some amazing sparkling wines that in the $20 to $25 range, $26 range, right? So yes, a little bit more than if you're just going out and buying $12, $14 bottles of wine. It is a little bit more, but it's not prohibitive. It's not, you know, if people are thinking it has to be in this upper $40, $50, $60 range,
Right.
It doesn't. The quality exists across the board if you know kind of what you're getting and what you're looking for. So that's the thing with pricing. But the other two reasons are marketing. I mean, decades of marketing, whether it's purposeful marketing from like Moet Chandon, which is like the party. They're all
Right.
every ad for them is like a party, you know, a wedding or a celebration of some sort, to pop culture, you know, hip hop videos, any it's always references to celebratory party expense. I mean, there's just this atmosphere and this aura that exists around that's been created. So that's part of it. So you kind of have to break through that and think of it as just wine and not
Right.
this special thing. The third reason I would say is a lot of people don't realize that, and this is something that's a little bit that I've discovered in the last couple of months. When I talk to people who are, yeah, I really want to join, you know, I talk to someone and they're like, but you know, I live by myself, and you know, I just have to think if I can drink it, and that's one of the biggest reasons. People think that when you open a bottle, you have to finish the bottle, right? And you don't. You don't think about that when you open a bottle of wine. Everybody opens a bottle of wine like, oh, I'm just going to have a glass or two and I'll finish the rest the next day or two. Great. You do the same thing with sparkling wine. You just have to have the right stopper. It takes a different stopper. It's not expensive by any means. You can literally get them for $5. Nicer ones would be like $12, you know, $15. And so, but with a good stopper, you can go 2, 3, 4 days with a bottle. And that's something I think that keeps a lot of people from opening them as well.
Yeah, I have a really good one that I always show people that I use. It clamps at the neck of it and creates that vacuum in there. But I mean, I have to be honest, it doesn't last It doesn't last multiple days at all. And then I started getting the splits,
Mm-hmm.
which are great because then it's not like a whole bottle that we have. I mean, they're harder to find, but they're also good too.
Yeah, just finished it. Well, a post. I'll do a couple of them where I opened a bottle and
Uh-huh.
then I had a glass, and then for the next 4 days, I open the same bottle and pour it, and you can see the effervescence, the bubbles, the foam, everything is still there all the way through.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple factors. Now, I mean, I'll put a little caveat in that if it's a lower quality sparkling wine that you maybe picked up at Safeway or something, it may not last more than 2 days. I mean, it'll definitely last 2 days without a question. You do not have to finish it in one day. To go to the third day, fourth day, you kind of start to get into the quality factors and some of how it's more detail of how it's produced and whether it's an aged champagne or things like that. But on the, I would say across the board, 2 days is never a problem. Most of the time, probably 3/4 of the time, day 3 still works as well.
Same thing with wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same thing with wine.
So with wine, if you don't have the right stopper for wine,
Exactly.
a good stopper, you can go 3, 4, 5 days with wine, 6 days. Same thing with champagne. And Leslie, you just touched on it, right? Some people have asked me like, well, I have a wine stopper, I put it in the champagne. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work. And the simple reason for that is pressure, right? Wine doesn't have pressure coming out of the bottle.
Right.
So you need something like you just mentioned. There's a couple different ones, but all of them have one thing in common is they clamp onto the neck, the ridge at the top of the bottle to hold it in place so that the pressure stops and is not escaping in any way. So yeah, that's the key.
That is I would say that's a great inexpensive stocking stuffer if somebody wants to give, if they know that they're a big the recipient is a big sparkling drinker. That is perfect. You can never have too many. I'm always like, where did I put it? Well, I keep them in my travel. I have a little wine travel case where I have my stoppers. I have my wine key in there because you just never know.
You never know. And one thing to be careful of, there is still a lot of people. One of the things people don't understand about champagne and sparkling wine is how much pressure is in that bottle. It's literally a dangerous amount, right? It can take your eye out. You have to be careful when you open them. And a lot of people know that there's a big pop. The same thing goes for day 2 and 3. And I have a dent in my ceiling to prove that.
Wow.
Because one day, it was the third day, literally, it was 3 days later. And it was the kind of stopper that you were talking about has a little lever that kind of comes around. And I was just sitting with my wife talking, and I flipped the lever with my thumb without having my hand on top. And when I flicked it, it just shot straight up into the ceiling and put a little dent.
It is amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. The first time that I did it, I was not expecting. I was when I used that closure, I was just expecting like like just with a regular wine closure, what have you. So it is amazing the pressure that builds up there for that.
It's a lot. It's like a standard bottle of champagne is more than a car tire. It's equal to a truck tire in terms of air pressure.
Really?
So yeah, it's a lot. That's why when you ever safety tip, whenever you open a bottle of sparkling wine, you undo the metal cap, right? As soon as you finish undoing that wire, always have your thumb, finger, or hand over that cork, because I've seen it happen. It's happened to me where the corks are a little bit dry, and as soon as you finish loosening that metal cage, boom, it just pops without any help. So if you happen to be pointing it at someone or looking over it or something like that, or have a glass chandelier above you, right, you just have your thumb over it so that you can feel it. It's not so much that your thumb would stop it, but you'll feel the cork move.
You will.
And then to put your hand on it. So
yes.
Safety tip.
Yes. So tell us about the Sparklets, the wine club?
Um, Gosh, I love sparkling wine. I love champagne, and I wanted to find a way to bring it. Um, I like to say sometimes bring it down to people because I think that there's beyond, in addition to that celebratory sort of mindset that a lot of people have when it comes to drinking it, it also just kind of that carries over in a lot of ways. I mean, and people don't think of it as just an everyday wine, and I want people to think about it that way, and I want people to think about it as it being good for them. So over time, like with my Instagram and the website, as photos, the galleries increase and there's more photos and activities and things going on, I want people to see drinking champagne and sparkling wine as something that is relatable to them and not aspirational. Too much and too often, even on Instagram with influencers and things like that, when it comes to champagne, especially in magazines or movies or things like that,
Yeah.
imagery is almost aspirational, like, oh, one day I could do that, or one day that could be me. And I really dislike that, right? I just want it to kind of bring it down to an everyday level, to just enjoy it. It's for you. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. You don't have to pair it with anything special. That's big for me is, you may have seen on Instagram, I do a series, another one coming out tomorrow, like Takeout Tuesday, where I just do takeout food, right? And I pair it with a sparkling wine or a champagne, because that's real life. You're not making this fancy, super long, in-depth meal specifically to pair with a bottle. I mean, you can, but how often does anybody really do that?
And who has the time,
Yeah,
honestly?
I mean, it's every day,
Right.
just everyday life. I mean, I like to say sparkling wine, if you've had a good day and you want to celebrate, great. If you have a good day, it makes it better. If you've had a bad day, well, hey,
It
you
makes
open
it
the bottle, it
better.
makes it better. So where's the reason to not have it? So with the
Right.
club,
Right.
I just wanted to bring that to people and to try to find a price point that is as reasonable as it can be, right? I mean, it's not, these aren't $10 bottles, but for a little over $100 a month, 3 bottles, or they could do every other month. And I like to mix it up, right? There's a lot of variety in terms of, it's not just champagne, it's sparkling wines from all over. I mean, I've had German sect and cavas and Spanish sparkling wines from the opposite coast of Spain, from the Basque region, from America, from France, from Greece, it's all over the world. There's so much out there, and it's not just the wine, which is great, but the people who make them, right, is amazing too. And finding small producers and small farmers and being able to kind of let you see who's making it a little bit and look it up and see,
Right.
there are a lot of, and it's not just because they're female winemakers. There just happen to be a whole number of really good female winemakers and small production farmers where this is their life. This is not, people think about like the big brands, Veuve Clicquot, or things like that, or Moet Chandon, and they're very automated and big and big companies, right? All the ones that are through my club are just, it could be you, right? If you have a little farm, you have a few acres, and you're making it, and that's what it is. I mean, it's farmer market quality and farmer market style of sparkling wine that I'm trying to kind of bring out to people and get them to understand what real quality sparkling wine tastes like. And my favorite thing is when I host tastings for people and they take a sip and their head goes back and they look at the glass and their eyes get kind of big. It's kind of like, oh, like I didn't expect that, right? Because the quality level is just not what people expect. And the easiest and simplest comparison is, everyone's eaten a peach before. We've all had peaches before, right? Then you go to the farmer's market and they hand you, they either cutting up samples or they hand you a peach and you take a bite and you're just like, oh my God, this peach is amazing.
Yeah.
Why can't I have this peach? Because you have to go to the farmer. You have to go to the source. You have to go to someone who's putting the care and attention and their livelihood into what they're making and not trying to mass produce it for the most money they can. They're just trying to make a living doing what they love. And bringing that to people and tasting that, there is a difference. There's a difference you can taste when you work with people like that.
You mentioned Veuve Clicquot, and I'm reading the Widow Clicquot book.
It was a good book.
And have you read it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing how, something that we enjoy started off as an accident that they were trying to get rid of,
Yep.
and how it's evolved. And at so many points in the beginning, that she was on the brink of failure, which sometimes it feels like my days sometimes.
I've felt that before.
Right. It's just the story behind just getting it to market and getting it to the consumer um, is pretty amazing. From where they started during a war to, now they're this huge champagne house and what have you, massively produced. But it goes back to they were um, brokers that worked with these small farmers. And I believe that you do find the better quality. It's harder to find, but I think you do find the better quality um, wines that way in that sourcing process.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And the market, fortunately, we live in a world today where accessibility has grown tremendously for the small guy, for the small woman, the small farmer. It's 15, 20 years ago, how would they get their bottles to market? I mean, how would they reach anybody? Like, it was
Right.
daunting, if not impossible for a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the ability to market and reach people through, through what our everyday means, through the internet for us, but not just that, just shipping in general is simplified now, and the ability to get your product out has changed dramatically. So I think that's really opened up a lot. But also I think there's just been a big movement in consumers, not just with wine, but across the board, right? To pay attention to the smaller companies, to pay attention to the individual. And some people actively search that out and look for it, which is great. Other people, if they see it, they'll choose a smaller company over a larger company. It's just, there's
Right.
awareness, I think, for that in general.
Have you noticed a move also towards sustainability in the sparkling market?
Definitely. And every wine that I source, I don't say they're 100% organic, because I don't want to force that upon myself, limit myself that, no matter what, it has to be organic. But easily 70 to 75% of everything that I've put out so far has been, if not been organic, and 100% of them are sustainably farmed, right?
Okay.
And the difference there would be, they do everything they can to respect the land and take care of the soil and the grapes, and use minimal intervention, no additives. They're not trying to mess with anything. They really want to showcase what they've grown. The word organic can get a little tricky, right? Depending on the country and
Right.
different things. So,
Right.
but what that means, though, at the end of the day, is they care for their land. And that's the thing about dealing with a small farmer, right? It's detrimental to them to use pesticides and herbicides and things like that are on the long term are damaging when they're trying to hand their property off. A lot of the farmers that I've been dealing with have been 3rd generation, 6th generation, 11th generation, right? So there's a long-term thinking that affects how they do things, so that they make sure that the quality of the land is there to last for a long time. But you definitely see more of it. I would say it used to be more difficult. Now it's almost more difficult to find somebody who's not doing it that way.
Okay. Okay. And
Even in America, even the American ones that I found that I've really liked have been either organic, biodynamic, minimal intervention, sustainable farming, all of that.
which is great.
It is great. And
It is great.
And my wife is 6th generation. She's the 6th generation of her family, of a farming family from Northwest Iowa, right? So they still have corn and soybeans, and she was up there a couple weeks ago helping her mom finish out harvest. And so agriculture, the whole farming world, right, and caring for the land is part of our family now too. So that's part of it.
That's excellent. Excellent. There continues to be a trend of individuals who are lending their names to labels, or they
I just had a
are.
bottle of Drake on Saturday.
Did you really?
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go on. I'll
Oh,
tell you
no,
about
no,
it.
no, no.
Go on.
I was
Finish
going
what
to
you were
ask
saying.
you, like, how do you weed through that? Like, which ones are the good ones? Which ones, are just another stream of income for these winemakers or brands? Winemaker, I'm using that term incorrectly. These brands.
They're all good to an extent, right? Most celebrities are not going to lend their name to something that's bad. It really comes down to personal preference on what
Mhm.
what you think that is. I mean, the Drake, the bottle, it's not called Drake, but it's Drake's bottle. He put his name on it. It's a beautiful bottle. I mean, the bottle is beautiful. I mean, it's a $300 bottle, and probably $50 of that is the bottle alone. It's really nice and intricate and
Oh,
fancy.
wow. Okay.
It's a nice bottle. Is it worth $300? I mean, I would say no. I mean, in terms of taste, you could buy easily three bottles, 3 or 4 bottles for that price that are the equivalent in terms of quality and what you're getting out of it. But it's cool. I mean, it's a fun brand. It's a fun name. Nothing wrong with it at all. You're definitely seeing it a lot more. Dwayne Wade has his. He's in multiple places right now working on vineyards, and yeah, Drake has his. And I know actually I met with a champagne producer in France last June who I can't say who it is yet because he told me not to say anything, but he's working with an actress and they're going to put out a limited edition one from his, and I can guarantee that that's really good quality what you're going to be getting. I don't know what the price point will be, and that's kind of always what the issue is, right?
Right.
It's when they add their name to it, what's the markup?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, not that I know Mr. Wade personally. Him and I haven't had dinner and talked about this, but I do think he takes a vested interest.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of the
And
few that I think is truly
yes,
cares.
yes, he takes a vested interest versus other entertainers where this is just like another stream of income for them or what have you. They might like wine, but they're really not too involved in the production aspect of it, or yeah, they're
Yeah, I
not
think I
too
mentioned.
involved.
I think I just had Dwayne Wade on my brain because I've read
Mhm.
about him recently, and he's going through, like, he's studying, right? He's doing work. He's putting in effort. He's trying to learn a lot about all of it, so that he's not just putting his name to it. He actually wants to produce something that is real quality, and so that's awesome to see.
Yeah, and he's in the board, I think, at UC Davis in their program. So there's a vested interest in it, but I understand. What's the name of Mr. Drake's?
Mod, MOD. That's the
Interesting.
name of I think that's the name of the vineyard, the producer in Champagne that he partnered with.
Okay.
I think it's Mod. You don't get a lot of information. We kind of Googled it real quick, and it's just kind of generic wording. They're like, one of the best vineyards in all of Champagne, this or that. Like, but I hadn't really heard of them.
Okay.
So it's not bad. It's good. It's just, is it $300 good?
Right. And I mean, and to your earlier point, if it's coming from Champagne, there is a certain level of expectation, that a certain level of quality that's demanded.
Correct. It doesn't mean it can't be not great.
But there's a quality standard
But there is a
there.
standard. Yeah.
There's a quality standard there. So, could you give people tips on, if they're shopping for a sparkling, to give someone
Yeah.
some things that they should consider?
One thing that's been nice to see, it's my So everything that I put into my club is I taste, I personally select. And so if someone's just like, oh, I really don't like it, that's fine, right? That's their taste may not align with my taste. My taste tends to skew a little more to the drier side. So if somebody really likes the sweeter, and that's just
Right.
that's all they really like, then great. Then it's not perfect for them, and there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with that. So the number one thing I kind of tell people when they're trying to figure things out is figure out, what do you like? Like, do you like it sweet? Do you like it dried? What does that mean? And to try to get a little understanding of what you like. It doesn't have to be in depth or crazy. I mean, it's super simple to do. If you go out to eat a couple times and order by the glass. And if you need to, talk to the waiter. If there's a somm, talk to the sommelier, right? Hey, and taste a couple glasses, right? You can do it. It doesn't have to be all in one night. You can do it over the course of a few weeks. And here's the thing: write it down. Write it down. Not necessarily the name, but if you didn't like it, right? Why you didn't like it, just in a couple words. You don't have to be this wine snob crazy thing. Just I didn't. It was too sweet for me. Okay, great, right?
Yeah.
If you do that, just not a lot, maybe 4 times, 5 times, and you can go and be like, and you want to write down what the bottle was, right? Write down the information from the bottle, and then you can really quickly be like, okay, I tend to not like these, and I tend to do like these.
Mm-hmm.
And by these, it can be like, I like extra brut more than I liked, the brut, or I had a demi sec, which was way too sweet, or I had a sec, which I really liked.
Right.
Some of the labels, right? The sweetness levels, whether it's a extra brut, a brut, or a sec, or a demi sec, right? That's the number one thing. You need to know that,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of get an idea. And then from there, at least that narrows you down into a certain area of sweetness that you can expect. And then from that, it kind of depends. There's rosés, you have blanc de blancs, you have blended blanc de noirs. Again, if you've tasted a few by the glass, you'll kind of start to identify some of the differences in there. But when you're in a store, it depends on where you're at. If you're in a wine store, ask. Ask. People have a hesitancy to ask for help. I've noticed that a lot. And so if you're at any wine store, they're always super happy to help you. Even if they see,
because you're wine people and they want
wine
to talk
people.
about wine. Yeah.
And I know, look, I get it. Sometimes they can come across as snobby, but once you talk to them, they're really not. Like, it just might be that, the atmosphere you walk into. Some places you walk in, it just kind of has a snooty atmosphere. But once you ask a question, you'll find everyone in the wine business is super willing and wanting to help you. They really do. So ask for help. If you're at a grocery store, Safeway, Whole Foods, or something like that, that's a little bit, you just have to kind of go by some of the basic information on the labels, and price points that fit for you. It doesn't have to be the most expensive one to be the best by any means. You just kind of have to try a few different ones. I mean, the number one thing really is the sweetness level, the brut, the extra bruts, and things like that. Would be one of the first tips. And then you may find that you gravitate more towards cavas, or you may gravitate more towards Proseccos or Cremant or something like that, because they are different, especially the Proseccos. They're in a whole different category. And so it just takes a little bit of experimenting, not a lot. I'm not trying to make people feel like, oh, it's too much work. No, just order by the glass a couple of times, but pay attention to what it is. And you'll already be well ahead of the game when it comes time to trying to tell somebody in a store what you like or what you don't like. And then they can be like, oh, great. This, or this is what I would suggest. So that's the kind of the easiest way to kind of get a little bit of basic knowledge.
Yes. So we have a comment from Ed O'Neill. Hey, Ed, thanks for watching. And he says, at home for the holidays, besides Bellinis and mimosas, make good holiday drinks. And I'd like you to speak to the wine cocktails, because I have a certain opinion about them. But what would you recommend as like the basis for these wine cocktails?
Prosecco.
Prosecco
is made for cocktails. It's a great, because it's a price point, right? You're not going to spend $40. If you spend $50 on a bottle of champagne and you try and mix it with peach schnapps or something else, right? It's like, why are you doing that? You wouldn't do that with wine or with any other drink. even a bourbon. You're not going to go and buy a $60 bottle of bourbon and make some crazy drink with it. You might make something like a Manhattan, maybe, but you're not going to put sweet and sour mix into it or do anything crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with champagne or sparkling wine, right? You just want to be on Proseccos are great. Some cavas, like the bigger brand, bigger produced ones, can work well. But yeah, I mean, a good cocktail. I mean, even some of the French cremants, you're in that upper teens, maybe you're in the teens, around the $20 range. You can get a little bit better quality, which will come through in the cocktail as well, but you're not breaking the bank. So the cremants, the Proseccos, some basic cavas they all make great cocktails. I haven't had a lot of champagne cocktails. I've had a few. I know some of my family members love French kisses. I mean, they just love a French kiss. They like to order them whenever we go out. So it's a little bit of gin added to, I forget what's in the French kiss. It's gin, champagne, and is it a little simple syrup maybe?
It may be.
I can't recall.
Anyone who's watching, let us know what's in a French kiss. Google it.
That's a popular one when it comes to having and it's super easy to make at home too, because I think it's only like 3 ingredients. But what do you think about cocktails, Leslie?
I 100% agree that you should not use a pricey wine to make cocktails. You should definitely, like, this is great for Prosecco's. This is great for, Andre, champagne, or what have you. You're just using it as the base. It's not your full flavor that you're looking for. So save your money. Do not spend a lot of money on that.
Sure. But they're fun. Nothing wrong with a good cocktail.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll throw one other little thing in there. That's what flutes are made for. Flutes are great for champagne cocktails. Beyond that, flutes are not really much use for sparkling wine or champagne.
Which is funny because a lot of people don't realize that it's okay not to use a flute.
Right. Flutes are great for cocktails, and for less expensive sparkling wines, some like Proseccos and stuff like that. Flutes are good for those.
Mm-hmm.
Once you put any kind of money, and it doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, if you're in the upper teens into the 20s in a bottle, you really might want to consider just using a white wine glass. Right? You don't have to have a champagne specific glass, but a white wine glass will work better. And for anybody who watches this, if you test it, you will notice a difference. If you pour into a flute and then you pour some into a basic white wine glass and you take a sip from each, you will notice a difference in how they taste.
I know anytime I do a wine tasting class and we are doing sparklings, I use our white wine glasses. And you can tell some people are like, oh, what's going on there. And we start with the coupe
mm-hmm.
and the flute, and then move to the white wine glass. And I think people feel like, wine can be intimidating to some people, what have you, and it's like going to a restaurant and not knowing which fork to use. And so similar to wine glasses, it just makes it much more approachable and easier to
and it's not wrong to use a flute. I don't want to say that and be like, you can't use one, you've made a mistake. There's no right or wrong with these things. Unless it's a red Solo cup, there's nothing wrong. Just drink it.
But I don't know. Some days the red Solo cup does really well too.
It's true too. But yeah, you're just gonna enjoy your drink a little bit more in a different glass. That's all. Flutes are pretty. They bubble for a longer period of time because they're narrow. But I've asked people this question before too. I flipped it around. Like, okay, if you have a nice Chardonnay or a nice Sauvignon Blanc that you have at home, that's maybe a $24 bottle or something in the 20s, you've been waiting and you serve it. Would you serve that in a flute? why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, they're not made for flute. Well, right. I mean, it's when you start to think about the logic of it, it starts to make sense. Like if you poured that white wine into a flute and you poured that white wine into a regular wine glass, you would again very much notice the difference when you taste it. Right.
Yeah. So I Googled it. I still was paying
Okay.
attention, but I Googled it. So it is a sparkling, preferably champagne, then a raspberry Chambord.
That's what it is. Okay.
And raspberries.
There's no gin?
No gin. That's it.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different one then.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, and a mint simple syrup.
Okay, there's a simple syrup.
Oh, okay. Let me start again. Pinterest gives you different recipes. So it is fresh raspberries, vodka, lemon, raspberry Chambord, mint simple syrup, and champagne.
I've never heard of it with vodka. That's the first I've ever heard of it. Vodka. It's usually been gin.
So I think this is like whichever recipe you land on Pinterest that's the one with the ingredients. But I'm quite sure I'm not surprised by vodka because vodka can be, I learned this from a bartender, can be a substitute for many cocktails.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it doesn't impart a lot of flavor. Gin has a specific flavor that it can add the botanical kind of flavor to the cocktail that the vodka won't. So it depends on what you want out of it.
So, long story short, just drink the champagne.
Just drink.
Just drink the champagne.
No matter what, right? You and I could talk for hours about wines and this and that, and go deep into all these things, and don't. I mean, listen to us, but don't listen to us, right?
Right, exactly.
Just go drink. I mean, we could talk about all these different characteristics and all these different things about wine, what makes it good, and a good one and a bad one. At the end of the day, what you drink, whatever you like, is a good one, right? Exactly. I've had people say, like, how do you know what's good? I'm like, do you like it? Then it's good. It's that simple. Does someone else not like it? Okay, well, that's their opinion, right? Don't get caught up in it all.
I completely agree, except for my mother. She has to stop drinking Manischewitz, but that's another day.
Well, I was gonna say, or my wife's grandmother, who liked the raspberry kind of wine, liqueur kind of wines. I don't even know if it's technically wine, but no, but yeah, it's I forgot where I read it recently. Or was it you? No, who was it that was saying it? I saw it recently. Someone was no, it wasn't you. I think I saw it. I don't know if you saw it. Someone was talking about the box wines and the cheap wine, the yellowtails and things like that. And there was like some negative comments or like people hating on it and stuff like that. It's like, no, because the red tails, the Kim Crawfords, not red tails, the yellowtails, red tails champagne. Sparkling wine.
I was going to say Red Tail is a really good vineyard in the Finger Lakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, Yellowtail, Kim Crawford, even Franzia, whatever you want, all these big names and stuff like that. If it wasn't for them, that's where a lot of people start drinking. Nobody starts drinking $25, $30 bottle of wines. It's not where you start. You start with whatever you can afford, whatever you can buy, and you like that, and that's good for that time. Great. And then maybe your palate evolves, or maybe after a couple of years, you're like, I want to taste something a little different because but if you don't have the lower end stuff, you don't have any appreciation, and people won't get into the higher end stuff. So everything has its role and its importance, and I don't look down on any of it.
One last question, and this is from Ed again, and he was asking, do you think 19 Crimes will come out with a sparkling? And I personally think they will. I think they're going to come out with like a sparkling Shiraz.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they've gotten very popular and they've grown quite a bit. I mean, sparkling takes time to produce. It's not as fast as a regular wine, but I mean, they're definitely, I mean, yeah, sparkling Shiraz would probably make sense based on kind of what they've been putting out.
Yeah.
That would make sense, but I wouldn't be shocked by it. I haven't heard anything about it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they are so extremely popular, what have you, and it kind of makes sense for them to have like a sparkling just from where they're supposed to be from in this part of the world, where that would be the norm there.
Yeah, and I think sparkling wine as a whole globally is growing, right? I mean, the numbers back it up. I mean, it is growing. It's a category that is becoming more popular. More and more vineyards are experimenting with it. You know, even in America, you're starting to
Right.
get more vineyards that are putting out American sparkling wines, and the ones that have been doing it now for 5 or 10 years are starting to get a lot better. And so you're starting to see some good American ones. So that's great to see. And then climate change. I mean, climate change is opening up sparkling wine to other regions where it wasn't always viable before for growing the right grapes for it. So yeah, it's expanding. So I wouldn't I'd see 19 Crimes and any other people. You're probably going to see more things like that coming out over the next few years.
I agree. I definitely agree. So can you tell people how to find you?
Sparklist. It's really easy right on the web, or for my Instagram, it's the Sparklist Club. Instagram's little differences in what you can and can't put in a name. So it's just the Sparklist Club. It is for Instagram, and Sparklist for the website. If you forget the hyphen, it doesn't matter. It'll still go to the same site.
Oh, I was going to ask you because I'm typing it in the comments. Is it hyphen?
It is hyphen, but I have both domains. So
okay.
If you forget the hyphen, it'll still direct you to the right place.
Well, thank you, Lieven. I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening.
No, this is great. I love talking about sparkling wine. I mean, when if anybody's ever wants to host tastings or learn more about it, right? I love educating people and talking about it and introducing people to different styles and things like that. So it can be as few as 6 people. You can reach out, and yeah, I love hosting tastings. I do them in people's homes and businesses, things like that. But when you have the opportunity to really taste and understand the differences, like it's like, wow, okay, I didn't know it could be like this. And yeah, I love that. So yeah, if you're just interested in trying some things out, you can taste, or really want to get into some things that you're not going to find, right? You're never going to find any of these bottles in a grocery store or on your shelves. And even if you might see it in a nice wine shop somewhere, they'll be very, very limited. So because a lot of these are very small production, I mean, just a few thousand bottles sometimes is all that people are making. And I'm fortunate to get my hands on some things that are just very limited. So
very cool. Well, thank you so much, and happy holidays to everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. And now that you listen to Lieven, you know what to get at the store and bring to Thanksgiving dinner. But I would caution you and not bring the expensive stuff to dinner.
Yeah,
I would keep it at the middle of the road, but yeah, definitely.
And you don't have to buy based on price, but the ones that are like $10, $12, $14, they're not necessarily going to, those price points are there for a specific reason because they're very mass produced.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can move
like
up in
$20, $30, like $20, $30.
Yeah. Anything from like 18, 19 and up. Maybe they could still be mass produced, don't get me wrong, but you're not getting there's a real difference in like $12 where they're just trying to crank out bottles as fast as they can. Versus some of the $18 to $20 range, or you get into the low 20s. There are some definitely very good bottles of sparkling wine there in the cavas and the créments and things like that for that range. So yeah, it's worth it.
Excellent. Well, take care, everyone, and we will let you know further in advance about our next topic and our next guest. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Cheers.